So, what if I told you that 1,000 years ago, a philosopher argued, logically, that writers are basically a higher form of human? Yeah, you heard that right. He argued they have the same kind of status over other people that people have over animals. It's a pretty wild idea, and it comes from this brilliant 11th century Persian thinker, Nasir Khusraw. All right, let's dive in and unpack this fascinating argument.
First things first, we've got to ask a question that people have been debating forever. Which is more powerful, the spoken word or the written word? I mean, think about it. We live in a world of podcasts and videos, but we still rely on text for so much. Well, Nasir Khusraw, he had a very, very clear answer to this.
For Khosrow, it all starts with how we actually learn stuff. He says our soul really only has two ways to get knowledge, two main paths to figuring out the world. The first is through the ear, by hearing things. And the second is through the eye, by seeing what's been written down.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because Khosrow immediately sets up a hierarchy. He says listening, well, it's a shared thing, but it's passive. The listener is just getting information that someone else, the speaker, is feeding them. But reading, oh, that's totally different. Reading is a specialized skill. The reader is an active knower, going out and getting that knowledge for themselves. It's really the difference between being told something and discovering it on your own.
And to make his point absolutely 100% clear, Khosrow uses this really powerful metaphor. Now, it's definitely a product of its time, but he says the ear is female, the passive part that receives knowledge, and the tongue, which does the speaking, is male, the active part that gives the knowledge. In his world, using this kind of language created a really clear power dynamic. The active is always superior to the passive. So the main takeaway from this first part is pretty simple. In Khosrow's philosophy, not all learning is created equal, not even close. For him, the person who can read and write is just fundamentally more honorable. They're on a higher level, really, than someone who can only learn by listening. Let's see how he builds on this.
Okay, so that brings us to the next layer of his whole argument. What is it about writing itself that makes it so darn special? Because for Khosrow, it's not just a way to communicate. Nope, it's something way, way more profound. He actually calls writing an industry, a craft, an art form that is completely and totally unique to humans. This is our big mark of distinction. I mean, just think about it for a second. Animals can make sounds to communicate, sure, but there's not a single other creature on this planet that can write. This skill, this whole industry of writing, is what truly separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom.
And this leads him to his first, very simple, and just undeniable logical point. 100%. Every single writer who has ever lived has been a human being. It's just a fact, right? Can't argue with that. But then he hits you with the follow-up question that just sets up his entire proof. Okay, so all writers are human, but are all humans writers? And of course, the answer is a big fat no. And that little imbalance, that asymmetry, is the key to his whole argument. And now we get to the real heart of it all, a straight-up philosophical proof for why the writer is supreme. Khosrow lays this out like a mathematician, just moving from one logical step to the next to get to a conclusion that is, frankly, staggering.
Let's just walk through this together. Step 1, we've got the relationship down. The group of writers fits completely inside the group of humans. Step 2 is a little thought experiment. Imagine you could just snap your fingers and remove all humans from existence. Well, the category of writer would obviously vanish too. Step 3 is the flip side. But if you only got rid of writers, humanity would still be here. And this brings him to his final crucial point. The thing that depends on the other, in this case writer, is actually of a higher order, a higher honor.
Now, if that sounds a little abstract, don't worry. Khosrow gives us the perfect analogy to make it crystal clear. He says the relationship between writers and humans is exactly the same as the relationship between humans and animals. Think about it. All humans are animals, but not all animals are humans. If you took away the category animal, human would disappear. But if you only took away human, the animal kingdom would still exist. The logic is identical. And that, my friends, is how we arrive at his absolutely mind-blowing conclusion. If the logic is the same, the conclusion has to be the same. Just like humanity has a special, higher place of honor over all other animals because of our unique abilities, the writer, because of their unique skill, holds that exact same higher place of honor over all other non-writing people. So you might be wondering, how does this incredible idea from 11th century Persia stack up against some of the big thinkers from the West? Well, let's put Khosrow in a little conversation with a couple of giants from Greek philosophy. The difference between him and Plato is just wow.
Plato famously argued against writing. He was worried it would make us lazy and forgetful. He thought of it as a dead thing that couldn't answer your questions, not like a real live conversation. Khusraw is on the complete opposite side of the field here. For him, writing isn't some crutch, it's the absolute peak of human skill, something that creates an elite class of knowers.
But here's the fascinating twist. While his conclusion is totally anti-Plato, his method is pure Aristotle. That step-by-step logical proof we just went through, using categories and dependencies, that is classic Aristotelian logic. You know, the foundation of Western philosophy for centuries. It's just an amazing example of how the universal tools of logic can pop up in different cultures, even if they're used to build completely different arguments about the world.
All right, so the big question is, what does this 1,000-year-old argument even mean for us today? Does Khosrow's whole hierarchy of knowledge still hold up here in the 21st century?
First off, we've got to ask, who even counts as a writer in our world? Is it just the novelist? What about the person who writes the code for an AI or the screenwriter for a huge movie? You could even argue it's the person who structures a podcast or a video. Does anyone who creates and organizes information fit Khusraw's definition?
See, Nasir Khusraw's whole argument is really about the honor we give to the person who creates permanent knowledge. In our age of constant content, deepfakes, and AI that can write essays, maybe his question is more important than ever. Do we still value the human act of creating knowledge? Or has that special honor he talked about just gotten lost in all the noise? What do you think? Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear what you think. Your support really means a lot and helps me keep creating content for you all. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.